Hey guys, peace. It's Cromby Tees back with another video. So today I want to talk about some common mistakes made in screen printing process, right? And I'm speaking from experience because I made several of those with this job. So the first mistake is when you get new equipment, right? Whenever you get new equipment, you should always play around with that equipment, experiment, figure out all this little inks and quakes and all of that other stuff, right? Because I got this brand new exposure unit, right? I never played around with the exposure times, never did any of that stuff, right? Just been sitting up here because the majority of the jobs that I have been doing have not required me to make any brand new screens. I've either been using the screens that I already got for other people's companies that I use for them on a regular basis. So I either been using those or I've been using my vinyl cutter to do new jobs. This job in particular, I'm making shirts for a company called Rack Runners. So I have been required to make some screens for this job in particular. So it forced me to have to play around with my new exposure unit, right? And so this exposure unit in comparison to the one that I was previously using is 1,000 times better. It's an LED light. It's 1,000 times better. The other exposure unit that I was using, I had to expose the screen for 15 minutes to burn the image into the screen. With this machine, through trial and error, I figured out that I only need about 40 to 50 seconds to burn the screen. When I first started playing around with this machine, I made 2 test screens. One was for 2 minutes, one was for 5.5 minutes. I couldn't determine from the 2 minutes whether I had over or under exposed the screen. So I went in again for the 5 minutes and to see if I was over or under exposing it. The 5 minute the screen that I burned for 5.5 minutes, it was way worse than the first one I did, which tells me that I overexposed it. So instead of using 2 minutes, I went under the 2 minutes. So I tried 1.5 minutes, I tried a minute. The one for a minute came out decent, but it was still missing a lot of detail. And so I went down to 40 and 50 seconds, and then that's when I figured out the exposure time. The emulsion that I used. The emulsion that I used for that is this right here. It's a photopolymer RyoNet emulsion. This stuff with that stuff wouldn't even with my other exposure unit. It wouldn't even, that stuff wasn't even strong enough to burn through it. This right here burned through it in 45 seconds. So this is a pretty good exposure unit. So so that was the first mistake I made. Waiting on a job to experiment with the play times. It set me behind about 3 days trying to figure all that stuff out. I went through about 6 screens in the process. I burnt through about 6 screens in the process trying to figure out the correct exposure time. So I ended up coming up with the correct exposure time. Okay, so that was the first mistake I made. The second mistake is measurements, right? So whenever you are doing a multicolored design, you have to make sure that your measurements are right and exact. Okay, so the first mistake that I made with this design, this is a 2-color design, and so I had a white underbase, a screen for the white underbase, right? That design, that part came out good, but it's when the red, this right here, my measurements was off a little bit, right? For whatever reason, my printer did not print. It didn't do the, I forget what they call it, the marks. It didn't print out the marks for these screens, for the transparency film. It didn't print the marks out so that I could correctly line everything up. I don't know why it didn't do it. It just didn't add the registration marks to the print. It didn't do it. So what I did was I printed out a third film, and I put the film on the platen, and I made sure that the screens lined up with the platen. So that was how I was checking my registration like that. The problem was when I burned this screen, I had the film up a little too high. It was up a little too high. And so when I tried to line it up with the thing, with the white underbase, I had to pull the screen out, and the screen, you can't really see that, but it's not, the screen is not all the way inside the clamp, right? And so that's for me making the image a little too high up on the screen. And so now I'm presented with a problem here, because I can get it to line up when I'm laying it down, but as soon as I try to tighten the clamps up, it pushes the screen up further. So this is the conundrum that I'm in. I am either going to have to make a whole nother screen, which is going to put me back about 2 days, and that's a problem because I already told the guys I was going to have their shirts done today. So I'm either going to have to make a whole nother screen, and that'll set me back another 2 days, which is not good for business. It's not good business at all. Or I'm going to have to try to figure out how I can get this screen to line up without it pushing the image up further when I clamp it down. And that's the part that I'm at right now, trying to figure out how I'm going to do that. I am not trying to make another screen. That's going to take too much time. So we are at a conundrum here.